Probably our biggest issue that we face are a little tiny, to us, parasitic mite that lives on the backs of adult bees and parasitizes the larva. To scale, it'd be something like a vampire rabbit on a human. And it feeds on the blood of adults and the larva. It reproduces on the larval stage and causes the colony a whole bunch of stress. If we don't manage this one, these tiny mites will breed out of control. They act as vectors for viruses, and they will kill colonies. These are treated with different types of organic or synthetic pesticides. There are some hive management things we can do that interrupt their life cycle, but nothing to the point that we don't have to treat for them. The second thing I brought in is what we call a frame, and this one shows fecal staining, and this comes from a really specialized kind of fungus that it's called a microsporidian, and the species is Nosema cerana. And we have two species of Nosema in Canada. They infect the bees' guts and cause a whole bunch of stress in the colony. Bees would normally defecate outside the hive, but when they have the gut infection and they're stuck inside for 6 months over winter, they have no choice but to go in the colony, and this is how the disease spreads. Eventually, this damages the bees' intestine enough that they can't take up nutrients anymore, which means they can't produce the food for the larva, which means there's nobody to replace old bees when they die off, and the colony slowly dwindles away. Brought in a frame from a colony that had a bacterial infection that we call American foul brood. This is a bacterium that larvae ingest when they eat food on the first 2 days or so of their life. After that, they're immune to it. But if they eat enough in the first 2 days, slowly this bacteria reproduces in their blood and turns them into a tiny, stinky little puddle of gluey, melted down bee in the bottom of a cell. And there's enough in really a few dead larvae to spread the spores through the colony and kill the whole colony. Up until the mid-1980s, American foul brood was probably the #1 disease that we faced. Since the arrival of varroa mites, varroa are now, by most opinions, #1, although Nosema factors in there as well. On top of all of that, this is a frame of food from a colony, from what I presume to be a healthy colony. And this is honey, and there's some pollen on this frame as well. Honeybees really only have two sources of food. Honey is their source of energy, and pollen is protein, fats, vitamins, minerals, sterols, everything else they need. And so when they only have opportunity to forage on one or two types of plants, they end up missing some components of their diet. So when we add all these things together, we have parasites, we have pathogens, we have nutritional problems, and a beehive can really only handle one or two of these things at a time. In the Canadian bee industry, we're having to stay on top of these four major factors, plus other species of fungi, at least 7 different viruses, and the need to move bees around, at least for beekeepers or commercial pollinators, which adds an extra level of stress. It's not an easy job being a beekeeper, but if you can make it work, in my opinion, it's one of the more rewarding ones.